appeared in page 19 of the Indian Express newspaper. Now, as I've already highlighted, IRDAI, which is an insurance regulatory authority, it classifies insurance companies based on life insurance or non-life insurance. However, this article it highlights that the industry it wants the IRDAI to grant a composite license, which means a company which is an insurance company it can simultaneously offer both life as well as non-life insurance policies. Now, why are we taking up this particular topic? It is because inclusive growth and issues arising out of it, it is an important topic of GS paper 3 syllabus. And insurance schemes they are aimed to increase the inclusive growth in an economy. Further, GS paper 2 syllabus it also highlights statutory body, and IRDAI is a statutory body. Now, a question on different regulatory authorities. It also appears in UPSC from time to time. For example, in the prelims of the year 2018, a question appeared on Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. Hence, we have curated a similar question on Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India. But before solving this model question, let us first understand what is this Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India. Now, as I've already highlighted, it is a statutory body and it was established as per the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority Act of the year 1999. Now, insurance sector in India, it is regulated by two acts. The first is Insurance Act of the year 1938 as well as this IRDAI Act of 1999. Now, both of these acts, it provides powers to IRDAI. For example, Section 14 of IRDAI Act, it provides powers and functions of IRDAI. For example, IRDAI, it grants certification to insurance companies. Further, it also renews, modify or can withdraw the certification of insurance companies if they violate the provisions of IRDAI Act. Further, this body, it also protects the interest of policy holders. How it protects the interest of policy holders is that it provides for various regulations related to nomination, what amount of interest that should be charged by insurance companies or other policies. Further, this body, it is also involved in promotion and regulation of insurance sector in India. For example, this body can provide requirement for an insurance companies so as to how they can establish their offices based on urban as well as rural areas. Because establishing an office in rural areas will further the inclusive growth by bringing more people into the insurance net. Further, this body it also adjudicates of disputes that can occur between various insurance companies, intermediaries as well as the policy holders. Now, Section 4 of this Act it provides for composition of IRDAI. As the IRDAI, it consists of 10 members and the first member is the chairman of this body. Further, there are 5 full-time as well as 4 part-time members of this IRDAI, and all of them they are appointed by the government of India. Now, after we have dealt with various provisions of IRDAI Act, let us now solve the model question. Now, this model question, it asks us with reference to IRDAI, consider the following statements. The first statement, it says that IRDAI is a statutory body which was formed under the Insurance Act of the year 1938. Although IRDAI is a statutory body, however, it was constituted or formed under the IRDAI Act of the year 1999 and not Insurance Act of the year 1938. Hence, first statement itself is incorrect. Now, the second statement, it states that the authority consists of part-time members who are appointed by insurance companies. Now, as I've already highlighted in this discussion, that the all members of IRDI, they are appointed by the central government, that is Government of India. Hence, second statement, it is incorrect. Now, the third statement, it says that the IRDI can specify the percent of insurance business to be undertaken by the insurer in the rural sector. Now, as I've already highlighted, that it undertakes promotion and regulation of insurance sector, and it also wants to make this insurance sector more inclusive and more reachable to people. Hence, it can regulate the amount of business an insurance company can do in an rural area. Hence, third statement is correct. Therefore, from this above discussion, we can conclude option A was the right answer as only one statement was correct. Whereas PYQ is concerned, here option A was the correct answer. Now, with this, let us move to the second article of the day. And this article, it appeared in page 15th of the Indian Express. Now, as you can see from this news snippet, India, it has refrained from agreeing to a COP28 pledge which provided for phasing out of coal for power generation, because India is a significant user of coal for its power generating needs. Now, why are we discussing this particular topic? Because coal forms an integrated component of power sector. Hence, it is important from GS paper 3 perspective, because the UPSC syllabus, it deals with infrastructure and its subcomponent, that is energy sector. Further, UPSC in this year, that is 2023 itself, it asked question based on thermal power plants in India. Therefore, we have curated a practice question based on sources for power capacity generation in India. But before solving this particular question, we need to know more about what are the sources that India secures or sources its powers from. Now, as you can see from this screenshot, it was given by Ministry of Power, and it states that coal, it is a important component for power generating activities in India, because coal as well as lignite, it constitutes for more than 50% of power generating needs. Whereas total fossil fuel requirement for power generation, it accounts for almost 57% of its power generation capacity. Whereas on the other hand, renewable sources, which include hydro as well as solar, they account for about 41.4%, out of which solar has the highest component. Now, as far as nuclear energy is concerned, it is very small as far as share of power generation capacity is concerned, because it constitutes for about 1.6% power generation capacity. Hence, what is the order that this question requires? And this, from this we can understand that coal is the highest source from which India's power generation capacity is sourced from. Whereas on the other hand, renewable, and that too solar energy, is the second highest component, which is closely followed by hydropower generation. While on the other hand, wind capacity, it constitutes for about 10.3%. Whereas biomass, it is there but lowly of only 2.6%. Whereas on the other hand, nuclear energy, it accounts for about 1.6% of India's power generation capacity. Now, with this, let us solve the practice question. Now, the practice question, it wants to arrange the following fuels and sources from highest to lowest share in capacity power generation in India. Now, from the above discussion, I can say that coal accounts for about 49 plus 1.6%, which is about 50.6% of total capacity. Whereas on the other hand, hydropower, it accounts for 12.4%. The third component, that is nuclear component, it accounts for 1.6%, whereas biomass, it accounts for about 2.6%. While the fifth component, that is solar power, It constitutes about 16.1% capacity of total power generation. Hence, the highest capacity it is coal. Therefore, first is correct option. However, you'll see that all these four options, it provides for coal as the highest source of electricity. Hence, to understand or to figure out the correct answer, you also need to know the following sources, that is how much hydro, nuclear, biomass and solar power accounts for its capacity. Now, the second most important source is solar, thereby, fifth is the second option. Hence, the correct order is 1, 5, 2, 4, and 3. Thereby, option C is the correct answer. Whereas PYQ is concerned, here option D was the correct answer. Now, with this, let us move to the third article of the day, which appeared in page 14 of the Hindu newspaper. Now, you can see that there's a volcano, which is Marapi volcano, and it erupted and it resulted into spreading of ash up to 3 kilometers into the air. Hence, you can see that this important geophysical phenomena has some consequences in the nearby regions. Now, why are we dealing with a volcanic eruption? Because UPSC GS Paper 1 syllabus, it highlights important geophysical phenomena such as volcanic activity as a part of its syllabus. Further, previous year questions have appeared on various volcanoes which are located in India, such as Barren Island. And this question, it was asked in the previous year question of the year 2018. Therefore, we have curated a practice question on Indonesian volcanoes, but we have to solve this practice question only after we know more about what is an volcanic activity. Now, this volcanic activity, it is summarized when a volcanic eruption, it occurs from the crust of an earth. Now, as you can see from this diagram, this volcanic eruption, it takes place at the crater of a particular volcano. And this activity, it can also be followed by emissions of steam and gases from this particular vent. Further, this activity, it occurs when the magma, which is located in the magma chamber right at the second layer of the earth, which is mantle, and because of increased pressure, this magma, it rises up in the earth's surface, and hence it erupts right from the crater of a volcano. Now, there are few conditions which enable this volcanic eruptions. For example, as we go below the earth's surface, there is a rise in temperature which is almost 25 to 32 degrees centigrade per kilometers. Hence, the more the depth we go down the earth's surface, there is an increase in temperature in direct proportion. Further, because of the load, because of the earth's surface, there's also an increased pressure of the incumbent load. And what this increased pressure does is that it generates more temperature down at the earth's surface. And it also leads to heating of gases and vapor which might be present in the earth's mantle. And all these three factors together, it leads to volcanic eruptions. Now you'll ask, why are volcanoes much more frequent in the region of Indonesia? It is because Indonesia, it is located in what is known as Ring of Fire. Now this Ring of Fire, it also includes the country of Indonesia. Because Indonesia, it sits in the world's most active seismic region, which makes it more prone to the volcanic eruptions. Hence, let us now solve the practice question. Now the question, it asks us to consider following statements. Statement 1, it states that Indonesian archipelago, it is one of the most explosive geology in the world, which we know is a correct answer. Now, what is the reason for this most explosive geology of Indonesia. It is because Indonesia, it is located in a high seismic region which is called as Ring of Fire. Hence, second statement also is correct. Now you can see that this second statement, it correctly explains the first statement, thereby making option A the correct answer. Whereas on the other hand, this PYQ of 2018 is concerned, here option A was the correct answer. Now with this, let us move to the fourth article of the day, which appeared in the science page of the Hindu, which is on the last page of the newspaper. Now this news article, it highlights that various countries, they are undertaking genome sequencing of its population. Now why are countries undertaking genome sequencing? Because it has certain benefits, and these benefits will be discussed in upcoming slides. Now why are we dealing with this topic of genome sequencing? Because UPSC syllabus in its GS paper 3, it highlights awareness in the fields of biotechnology. Further, a question has appeared on various aspects of genetic engineering, especially in the prelims of the year 2021, where a question, it appeared on Bolgard 1 and Bolgard 2 technologies which are utilized for developing genetically modified crop plants. Hence, we have curated a practice question on Genome India project, which is a genome sequencing project of India. But before solving this question, let us first understand what is this genome sequencing and what are the Indian efforts in this direction. Now, as we know, each and every organism, it consists of a DNA. Now, these DNA or deoxyribonucleic acids, it consists of 23 pairs of chromosomes. Now, these chromosomes, they consist of 4 nucleotides, and these are adenine, cytosine, thymine, as well as guanine. Now, all the organisms, they will consist of these 4 nucleotides. However, the order of these nucleotides, it is different in each and every organism. Hence, to understand an organism completely, we need to understand the exact sequence of these nucleotides in an organism. And this process of determining what is the exact sequence of nucleotides, it is called as genome sequencing. Now, what are the applications of this genome sequencing? For example, even the COVID virus, it had a particular genome sequencing. And when scientists, they were able to understand this exact genome of COVID-19 virus, it enabled them to diagnose a disease. For example, if a human being was affected by COVID, it could be known by the genome sequencing. Further, treatment of this disease, it is an also important application of genome sequencing, because various variants of this COVID-19 virus, how we'll be able to distinguish between one variant or the other. For example, whether the COVID variant which has affected you, whether it was alpha variant, beta variant, or delta variant, it was determined by this process of genome sequencing itself. Further, there were various vaccines which were more efficient or efficient for dealing with a particular type of variant, and these were itself developed with the help of genome sequencing. Further, genome sequencing, it also helps in prenatal screening of the fetus. For example, if a baby, it has a certain genetic shortcomings, it can be determined by this process of genome sequencing itself. Further, this genome sequencing, it also helps us understand the genetic makeup of crops and what type of deficiencies are there in a crop which will be subsequently attacked by pests. Hence, by genome sequencing, we'll be able to understand the exact sequence of a crop, and also it will enable us to make additions or subtractions in that particular genome. Hence, genome sequencing, it also has a wide application as far as agriculture is concerned. Further, forensics or its various aspects, such as identifying a parentage of a baby, it can also be utilized with the help of genetic sequencing. Now, as genetic sequencing, it has several and most important applications. Thereby, every nation, including India, they are undertaking this genomic sequencing project. For example, the first efforts of an Indian government towards genome sequencing, it was categorized as an indigen project. And this project, it was initiated by the Central Council of Scientific and Industrial Relations, which is abbreviated as CSIR. And in this project, it was undertaken in the 6 months period that was from April to October of 2019. Now, in this project, the sequencing of 1,029 individuals it was undertaken, and these individuals they were sourced from various diverse ethnic groupings. Whereas the second project that India undertook, it was called as a Genome India project. And in this project, the whole genome sequencing it was tried to achieve, as well as the analysis of data which came out of this whole genome sequencing, it was done in this particular project. Now, this ambit of this project, it was much wider than the Indigen project, because Genome India project, it aimed to cover more than 10,000 individuals. Now, this project, it was undertaken by Department of Biotechnology with active support from National Center of Biological Sciences as well as Institute of Genomics. Now, what this project it wanted to do was that it wanted to create a reference database of genome sequencing of Indian population. Further, identifying genome sequencing of various diverse ethnic groupings, it will also help India identify the genetic variations of its populations. And it will also help India determine what kind of population is more vulnerable to a certain type of disease. Hence, now we have known more about Indigen as well as Genome India project. Let us now solve this model question. Now, the first statement of this Genome India project question, it asks us that the project aims to sequence the whole genome of around 1,000 individuals from diverse ethnic groups. Now, as we know that Genome India project, it is much more wider than the Indigen project, as Indigen project, it aimed to calculate or understand the genome sequencing of 1,029 individuals. Whereas on the other hand, this Genome India project, it wanted to understand the genome sequencing of 10,000 individuals. Therefore, statement 1 is incorrect. Whereas the second statement, it says that the project has been initiated by the CSIR or Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. Again, this statement is incorrect because this project, that is Genome India project, it was initiated by Department of Biotechnology. As both of these statements are incorrect, thereby option D is the right answer. Whereas the PYQ of this previous year question, as I've already highlighted, is option